In this section, we will go ahead and install the MySQL ODBC connector, which stands for Open Database Connector. Such connectors are typically provided by database providers to allow users to gain access to their databases via third-party tools such as Microsoft Excel, and also to be able to connect from various programming languages such as Python, C++, and Java. To install these connectors, we can go back to our original MySQL installer and from here, if we wanted to upgrade any of our components, we can click on Next. However, for now, we can click on Cancel, which will bring us back to the MySQL installer, showing us what applications or programs are currently installed. Note here that our architecture is x64, while our documentation and examples have been downloaded as x86. If you are unsure of what architecture you are working on, in Windows you can go to your Windows Start area and type in About to find out details about your PC. From here you should see Device Specifications, and under System Type we can see that my laptop is currently x64. Now that you have identified what architecture you are running on, you can go to the Add menu, and under MySQL connectors, the first connector we can see here is the ODBC connector. I will select on the x64 connector and in addition, as I'm doing some Python development at the moment, I can install the latest version for Python. Which is also x64. We can go ahead and click on Next and execute to install. Once complete, we can click Next and Finish. We can now see our two connectors have been installed for ODBC and for Python, and we can exit out. To set up your ODBC connector, click on Start and type in ODBC, and you can see there is ODBC data source 32-bit if you're running on x86 architecture, or ODB data sources for 64-bit. So I'll click on 64-bit. And from here we have a number of different tabs. If you're installing the driver for just your own personal use, you can select User DSN. Whereas if you want to install a driver for all users on your computer, you can select System DSN. For now, we will just go ahead and install under User DSN. I'm presented here with two MySQL connectors, one for ANSI and one for Unicode. As you may recall, our sales database is set up with UTF-8 MB4, so we can go ahead and use the Unicode driver. And I will call this driver MySQL ODBC. Under TCP/IP, our server, I can type in localhost. I will connect with user root and password. we can test the connection. I go ahead and click on test, and we can see a successful connection. We can then go ahead, if we want to define a database, so we'll select on sales and click OK. We can come out of our data source administrator and click OK. Next, we can go ahead and open up Microsoft Excel. And before we attempt a connection from Microsoft Excel, I would recommend that you first check what version of Microsoft Excel you are running. With my laptop, as it was set up with Microsoft Office already installed, the default had been installed with Microsoft Excel for 32-bit. To check your version of Microsoft Excel, click on Account and click on About Excel. So we can see here that Microsoft Excel is now installed with 64-bit version. However, when I initially attempted a connection from MySQL using the MySQL ODBC connector, it came back with a conflict saying that there was a conflict between the MySQL ODBC 64-bit installation and the application, which was 32-bit. To rectify this matter, I had to uninstall Microsoft Office and reinstall Microsoft Office using the 64-bit version. For example, to install Office 64-bit, come into the installer, select On Office, and you will be given the option for Setup 64 or Setup 32. However, if you select on the setup.exe, this will default to 32-bit version. So make sure to go into Office itself and select Setup for 64-bit. Once I had Office 64-bit installed, the connection worked successfully. So I can go ahead and test this connection now in Excel by clicking on Data, Get Data from Other Sources, and under From Other Sources I can select on From ODBC. So we can click on ODBC and from the drop down we can see our MySQL ODBC connector that we installed. We will select MySQL ODBC and click OK. We'll be prompted to provide a username and password. We can click Connect. And we can see now we're presented with a full list of details for the MySQL database. From here, we can navigate to the likes of the Sakula database, where we can see a combination of our tables and views. Tables denoted with a single table icon, whereas views are typically queries from multiple tables. Or we can go ahead and select on our sales and select Cost Pay Total, and we can see our data presented to us. If needs be, we can transform the data before loading into Excel. For example, with payment total, we can change to a currency. Or if we had date fields, we might want to select the corresponding correct date field if we were given a full date. So once you have your data set up correctly, we can go ahead and close and load the information. And Excel will present us with details once again, telling us our 9 columns have loaded from our given data source. Now that we are directly connected to the table, the next time we open up Microsoft Excel and refresh our connection, if the number of rows has increased or decreased, this will perform the correct updates in Excel. I can go ahead and save my file. And I will call this Sales Summary with ODBC. That concludes this section on how to set up the MySQL ODBC connectors.